Welcome to the TokyoBill Weekly. Stories from Japan, told from Japan. This week, Japan just passed a law to save its imperial family, and in doing so, may have signed its death warrant. I am Canadian, which means I technically have a king. Most of the time, I don't think about this. King Charles III appears on some of the currency. His name is invoked in certain legal proceedings, and beyond that, he's largely absent from the texture of daily Canadian life. What I will say is that for most of my life, the monarch was not a king at all. It was Queen Elizabeth II, who reigned for 70 years and whose presence on the throne was so long and so settled that the idea of a male-only monarchy felt, from a Canadian perspective, genuinely abstract. We had a queen. It worked. Nobody much worried about it. I mention this because Japan is currently worrying very much and very publicly about exactly that question. And the answer its government just gave is one that a lot of Japanese people, and a fair number of outside observers, find difficult to understand. I suspect most Australians and many British people would recognize the Canadian description of constitutional monarchy as their own: present, largely uncontested, and rarely urgent. Japan is different. The emperor is not background. The chrysanthemum throne is woven into what Japan understands itself to be, into the national calendar, into the concept of historical continuity, into the quiet architecture of national identity in a way that has no real parallel in countries that inherited their monarchy from Britain. When Japan thinks about its emperor, it is thinking about something that has existed in unbroken form for over 1,500 years. Which is precisely why what Japan's parliament did on Friday this week deserves more attention than it is getting outside this country. On July 17th, Japan enacted the first major revision to the imperial house law in nearly 80 years. The stated purpose was to shore up the imperial family's dwindling numbers, a genuine and pressing concern. The imperial family currently has 16 members in total. Only 5 are men. The youngest eligible male heir is Prince Hisahito, 19 years old, the nephew of Emperor Naruhito. After him, the succession line moves to Naruhito's uncle, who is 90 years old. In an institution that places everything on male line descent, that is not a succession plan. It is a countdown. The new law introduces 2 mechanisms to address this. First, it allows distant male relatives from former imperial branch families, 11 families removed from the imperial register after Japan's defeat in World War II, to be readopted into the imperial household, provided they are single and at least 15 years old. Second, it ends the long-standing rule that female members of the imperial family must renounce their royal status upon marrying a commoner. Princesses who marry outside the family may now retain their titles and continue official duties. Both changes are real, and the second is genuinely significant for the women it affects, including Princess Aiko, Emperor Naruhito's 24-year-old daughter, whose cousin Mako famously relinquished her royal status in 2021 to marry the man she loved, at considerable personal cost. But here is what the law does not do. It does not allow women to become emperor. It does not place Aiko, or any other woman, in the line of succession. A man adopted from a former imperial branch, a man who has spent his entire life as an ordinary citizen, can now be readmitted to the imperial family and placed ahead of the emperor's own daughter in the succession order. That is not a minor technicality. It is the central logic of the legislation, and it was a deliberate choice. Public polling has consistently shown that over 70% of the Japanese population supports allowing a female emperor. A Mainichi Shimbun newspaper poll found that only 23% supported the adopted male mechanism that was just enacted, with 34% opposed. The government was aware of these numbers. It passed the law anyway. There is an irony here that has not been lost on observers. Japan's Prime Minister is Sanae Takaichi, the country's first female head of government. She is also the leading advocate for maintaining male-only succession to the Chrysanthemum throne. Chizuko Ueno, Professor Emeritus of Sociology at the University of Tokyo, also Chief Director of the Women's Action Network, and named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in 2024, put it plainly. It is very ironic that the first female prime minister herself is the leading proponent of the obsession with male succession. Ueno went further, writing that the new measures treat male royals as stallions and put female royals under pressure as what she called childbearing machines to produce male offspring. That is pointed language. Given the logic of the legislation, it is not an unreasonable description of what the law is functionally designed to do. Takaichi's position is not irrational on its own terms. She and other conservatives argue that the male line succession principle is the thread of historical continuity that gives the imperial institution its meaning. That is a coherent argument. It is also one that rests on a significant historical misreading. The male-only succession rule is not ancient. It dates specifically to the 1889 Imperial House Law, enacted during the Meiji era, Japan's period of rapid modernization along Western institutional lines. The model for that law was not drawn from Japanese tradition. It was drawn from Prussian military-style patriarchy, imported as part of Japan's effort to build state institutions that would be recognized as modern and legitimate by the Western powers of the day. A rule presented as the preservation of timeless Japanese tradition is, in historical fact, a Victorian-era import modeled on German governance. Before 1889, Japan had 8 reigning empresses. The argument that female succession would represent an unprecedented rupture in an unbroken tradition is simply not supported by the historical record. Professor Makoto Okawa, who studies imperial lineage at Chuo University in Tokyo, has said he finds it difficult to identify any rational basis for refusing to allow a woman to become emperor. The historical evidence is not on the conservative side of this argument, whatever the political weight behind it may be. And the history compounds in another direction. Of Japan's 125 emperors, nearly half were born to concubines, or, as a government advisory panel once delicately put it, of illegitimate descent. The male line principle has in practice been bent whenever biology made it necessary. Just never, apparently, in the direction of a woman on the throne. Across the democratic world, constitutional monarchies are in various states of negotiation with their own relevance. In Australia, roughly a third of the population want to become a republic as soon as possible. In Britain, support for the monarchy has softened among younger generations. In Canada, as I said, the institution is present but rarely thought about. What these conversations share is a question nobody has fully answered. What is a constitutional monarchy actually for in 2026? In Japan, the identity argument for monarchy is stronger than almost anywhere else. The emperor is the symbol of Japan to itself, rooted in something that predates the modern nation-state. Which makes the current situation all the more striking. An institution whose power rests almost entirely on representing national continuity has just been legislated against the expressed wishes of most of the population, in a direction most people do not want. One of the distant relatives being considered for readoption, Asahiro Kuni, 81 years old, has already said he would advise his grandchildren to refuse the opportunity, telling a Japanese newspaper that by the age of 15, a person has grown up breathing the air of freedom, and that imperial life is not something he would wish on a young person who has known ordinary existence. Princess Aiko is 24 years old. She is popular in a way that is genuinely personal, cheered like a pop star on official visits, warm, serious, and devoted to public service. She currently works for the Japanese Red Cross. She is the emperor's only child, and she cannot succeed him. A teenage boy she has probably never met may eventually do so instead, under a rule that was not ancient Japanese tradition, but a Prussian import from the 1880s, maintained by a government that cannot find a rational basis for it and will not change it anyway. In Japan, a monarchy question is not a conversation about a distant, symbolic institution. It is a conversation about something close to the center of national life. And the answer the government just gave, not yet, not now, not her, is one that the public, the polls, the historical record, and the institution's own survival prospects all suggest was probably the wrong one. That is the Tokyo Bill Weekly for July 18th, 2026. I've been, and remain, Tokyo Bill. Thank you for listening, and take care.